me along to the Wooragee Landcare cultural burning webinar. And I'd just like to first do a quick acknowledgement on the lands we meet all across today on Sky of past, present and emerging Indigenous community, and as well the broader community that joins us today. So today I'll be talking about the 3 points that were promoted on the flyer, and to give the local Landcare communities and others a bit of an insight of what we're doing. And also ignore the 17th of November. I'm thinking it's a month forward already, so just ignore that. So background of my role, I was employed with the Country Fire Authority through the Safer Together program. So my background is I've been a volunteer as a junior and then joined DSE once I was 19 and worked in the fire management sector, went off and did some post-studies and then had the opportunity through Safer Together to work as a statewide culture heritage advisor in that space. So it's a unique opportunity and it's a good way we're trying to work in with the broad communities. So ever since 2014, CFA has been sending CFA staff and volunteers and members to cultural burning workshops interstate and in Victoria to learn about Aboriginal culture and how traditional burning practices could inform modern fire use practice. So we're now part of what we've been doing in CFA is working with the Victorian Federation to develop the Victorian Cultural Fire Strategy. So through the presentation, there'll be linkages, there'll be some film clips, and it'll be available to the members that participated. I'll email that through so you'll have a copy. And what we're looking at doing is CFA's main goal with Indigenous communities is to work with the Indigenous communities, for the Indigenous communities, and let them lead by the community. So our approach is being transparent, mutual, and working together. I'll just go next slide. So there's a couple of links here with CFA news stories, what we've been doing in this space. I'll just bring up this one now. So this is the external link, and this was due to a fire that occurred.
So Michael, for us to see that link, you're actually going to need to change the share screen.
Oh, that's okay. No worries. I'll come back into. Hang on. I've just lost the presentation. That's not good. Yeah. There we go. Sorry, guys. So anyway, instead of showing the links, there's quite a few different stories of where CFA has been working in with the communities, and from Landcare, Trust for Nature, committees of management, also with Forest Fire Management Victoria, Parks Victoria, CMAs, local governments, and water authorities, and other community organisations in this space with the Indigenous, or starting to develop with Indigenous communities or relationships we already have established with Indigenous communities across the state. So there's a good linkages through here, which I'll share afterwards. Another good website is culturalburning.org, and that's the Safer Together program or project that was delivered last year, and it's the interagency website that the community can contribute to. So if Landcare had some projects, for example, that they'd like to share, there's an opportunity for that to occur, or looking at different research papers, news stories, etc. The next one is down the bottom. It's really worth having a read of this. It's Deputy Chief Fire Officer Loddon Malley, Scott Faulkner. He went on exchange with one of the traditional owners from Shah Trent Nelson, and they went over through the Norman Whitnell Foundation and did exchange with the First Nations people over in North America. So that was worth having a read, and the linkages are attached to that. So what I'd like to probably discuss next is cultural burning, and how does it relate to the local communities? How do we understand and interpret? Also, who do we talk to, and why should we burn or not burn? And it's about taking in from an Indigenous perspective. We observe the environment all the time, so we see ourselves as part of the environment, not separate to it. So it's about looking at microclimate changes, the particular bioregion you live in. It's about the flora and fauna that may be in your local community. It's looking at all those sudden changes or alterations to land too that will change the way fire behaves in your local community. So it's about being agile, resilient, and a continuum with fire management practices such as cultural burning and engaging with Indigenous communities. So I think if those principles are taken on board, and it's about a learning event together and as a collective to get better outcomes for our flora and fauna. I was going to share this clip. We'll just trial it. So what I thought would be appropriate with intellectual property rights, communities in Victoria, it was good to get probably an example that is completely relevant to the cultural burning webinar, but a perspective from Indigenous communities that's engaged with sharing knowledge. There are Victorian communities locally and across the state that have got vast and myriad of programs that we partner with, participate with, or help establish or work to getting a better structure in place. So what I've done is I've used Martu, and it's a perspective from international academic researchers, and the second one is from the community's perspective. So they're both pitched from to the international audience. So I'll just try and play with this clip and see if it'll work. Is that working for everyone?
It is, yes.
Okay.
Just might need to turn the volume up.
Yeah, no worries. Sorry. What I'll do is I'll just quickly turn up my computer to get the maximum. I'm just trying to bring it back. Alani, can you just jump in and alter the next slideshow on that part? Oh, there we go. All right, we'll try again. Sorry, guys.
I'm having trouble hearing that.
So what we'll do is we'll skip through, which is a little bit unfortunate. So what I'll do is I'll quickly talk through just a quick example. So these two academic researchers, husband and wife, participate with the Matu people to look at resilience within the environment, adaptation, and how to better modify microclimates to bigger landscape areas. So that's the first take, and is quite interesting with the information they've presented with that one. So the next one is Al Jazeera, and that's quite a good linkage there. And what I'll do with that as well, I won't play the clip, and it gives a different interpretation. So it gives it from the Indigenous peoples continuum of culture of how to work in with getting the right type of fire, of cultural burning, of low fire intensity in burning, but also moderate to high burning. So it depends on what you're targeting, and with the seasonal calendar too. So a lot of the communities across Australia use the 6 seasonal calendar. It depends on what part of the continent you're on and the way of observation and how they see seasonal occurrences happen. Also, it's about looking at indicators in the sky. So during the night, star systems, the relation with environment, especially fire, wind, water, and earth, as well as spiritual connection, is what guides the cultural continuum with passing of oral language indicators in the environment and a different way of interpreting. So that's what the summary is overall with the 2 video clips that I would have liked to have shared. Normally on a different platform I use, it normally works pretty well. So forgive me with the Skype sharing. It's only a handful of times I've used this application to present. Another topic that come around that I was asked about was about fuel treatments or planned burning. A lot of the community knows it as. So within CFA, we call it fuel treatment, which is virtually the same. And what we're responsible for is burning on roadsides and local government areas, also Vic roads, committees of management, private landowners that like to participate, community organisations such as Landcare, and a myriad of other stakeholders on the private interface. So that's where CFA has been traditionally working with. Now with Safer Together, we're looking at a tenure blind approach to working with the Crown land and other land tenures to get a more transparent, open way of doing planned burning or fuel treatment. So in the space or with what we can and can't do, the fire agencies and partners through Safer Together have been working towards creating an electronic permit system, and that will give the community an opportunity to register their burn and be able to look at appropriate times or when they can burn. So the good thing with that is it enables particularly Landcare that wants to do a burn during winter or spring just to register it. It doesn't have any other legalities. It's just notifying the fire management that there's a burn that's occurring, but it's not a hindrance or it's not a way of constraining community to participate in delivering better fuel mitigation and protection measures that we're trying to achieve across the state of Victoria. So that's the ultimate goal and objective that we're working in with that space. So when it comes to getting a permit, there's also the local CFA brigade captain, or you can apply through District 24 office, and you just inquire there about how to apply for a permit, or also your local government, and there's a small fee for that. So that's a part of the electronic permit system that's replacing the old permit system in that space. So another good feedback or way of communicating with the fire management agencies. For example, if there's a local roadside burn that's been nominated, or the community would like to nominate, anyone in the community can put a nomination down and put that through within a certain time scale, which used to happen, but now you can nominate 365 days a year, and that's where the right agency, local government, and the right stakeholders and communities will be able to work with achieving that. So there's a bit of that happens in that space, and there's a lot that's changed with the way of permits used to be issued, the way fire management's happened, and that's kind of a lead into what occurred through 2019 with the fire season, the Royal Commission, a lot of state government inquiries. There's a report, the IGEM report, that gives an indication of where the fire management agencies across Victoria need to focus and better work with. So that's more about local communities, working in with the communities and delivering better ways of managing around your property, understanding where to burn, understanding where not to burn potentially. It's about understanding that local landscape as well as your own property to get the best outcomes for when unfortunately we do get lightning or event occurs where we do get a large fire. So it's about being proactive, and I think that's a good way of working in with the community and getting feedback, good, bad or otherwise. It's really important because we don't have all answers or solutions. It takes a collective to get better outcomes. So that's what we're looking and working in with the communities too. but also it's the enabler for Indigenous communities where they're looking at where they're doing a few burns on the private estate. They go through the permit system to enable that burn or on roadsides and the like. So there's a little bit of complexity when it comes to land tenure and how burning gets done, but for the purposes of going, who do we go to? Where do we get that information? Your local CFA captain or your District 24 CFA headquarters, or District 23 for areas with CFA in Wangaratta for areas that may be in the other part of the fire district that crosses Wooragee and parts of the northeast that we're presenting today. So that's what's happening in that space there. And I suppose the main thing too, without those video clips playing, without linkages quite working, I think after this presentation and the members that participated have had a look at that, it will put in a better context or understanding from looking at an example from the continuum of culture that was chosen because they wanted to participate with their sharing of knowledge. But a lot of this occurs across Victoria. It's just we're very sensitive and look at the First Nations people across Victoria's rights with IP and letting them be able to tell the story, the research and the ways of continuum of using cultural fire. This is a good example of climate change or a changing climate alteration to landscape. So over Mount Sterling, in the 2006-2007 fires, it was severely affected by the Great Divide fires. And what that has done is severely altered what would have been areas that would have provided refuge in riparian areas. Also with utilising different species that would alter flame intensity and height. Your mid-story that's competing now, your top canopy and alike. So what we've seen is we're starting to get a lot more fires pop up in remote areas and also in areas that we thought that we wouldn't get fire with the right circumstances. So this was caused by a thunderstorm that went through in the high altitudes. It delivered snow. And at that altitude there, we had a couple of lightning strikes. A tree was burning for 2 weeks and it ended up being a 10-hectare fire. They had to fly in crews to do dry firefighting around that particular fire. And they couldn't get vehicles in because the snow had stopped all access. So what we're seeing is, and like Indigenous communities across different continents, we're seeing that principle of changing environment. Things are really happening pretty quick. And the basis of science is the validation of observation. So it's looking at it different ways community interact with the element of fire. And we found from a CFA perspective, working with Indigenous researchers from different parts of the globe, the message is very similar. So we've got a variance, a degree of connection from an understanding of fire today as a whole community. So where do we want to bring in better types of management or ways of doing things. So it starts from the individuals, it starts from the communities, and it starts from grassroots of going, I'd like to use what I've learned to better prepare myself due to wildfire or bushfire, but also I want to enhance my own local environmental values and overall health of the land. So in summary, that's the presentation overall. I'll just click to the next slide. So this is my grandparents. That's my mum there. And through her journey, we ended up being born in Seymour. So my mother and father are both from South Australia, but we've also had the opportunity to go across and see family and interact in that aspect. So I think a lot of community today do have those connections, and I feel, or sometimes people feel that they've got to try and legitimise their understanding of fire. I think when we look at fire as a collective, it's about working as a team, a community, and about sharing knowledge. And that's how communities and societies work together to be able to be here today and into the future. And I think with what's occurred in the last 20 years of fire, we do need to think about how we change, share, and work in a mutual collective sense with a lot of knowledge that we can help from an agency perspective of supporting, but also enabling the Aboriginal Victorian communities to participate and continue our contemporary culture. And what I'll do is I'll leave it at that. And thank you for your patience and semi-amateur presentation. But I'll hand back to Alani.
Thanks, Michael. If you'd just like to stop your screen sharing, that'll bring our participants up. Yeah, now that was really interesting. And I think it's really interesting that you sort of say that it's about working as a community too. And I think that's one of the things that this project has probably tried to initiate a little bit, is actually working more as a community on the Wooragee's Cultural Burn project. So have we got questions from anyone? Fleur, do you have a question?
I'm wondering, Michael, how do you think the CFA generally is receiving traditional knowledge? I mean, obviously it's fantastic that you're employed with the CFA.
Yeah, so what CFA is doing, we're still going through a little bit more changes. We've now got a 2020 strategy of what our core values are, how we're working in with the community. And we've got a lot of support. So there's a lot of networks across the state, from CFA members being volunteer, staff, or others that are contributing to what we're doing is pretty extraordinary. So a couple of projects I'm involved in is the Fine Schools program, which is the interagency program aimed at grade 5-6 students in understanding fire, working with the education department and other sectors. So what we're doing is we're in a developmental stage, and then what we're doing is we'll look at seeking again the expertise to let the community lead and power in that space. So not just Indigenous communities, all parts of community that want to contribute into better understanding of fire mitigation techniques and learning to deal with fire again. I think with the social norm and generational changes too, I notice in my generation and younger generations, and a little bit of, I suppose, local community connect and interaction isn't quite there. So that's vital with getting local knowledge and expertise on how to look after your own environment. Gives you better protection. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Michael, I've just got a question from Chris in the chat. She asked, what would be the difference in process between working on a DELP streamside licensed site in Wooragee that Wooragee has responsibility for versus our own private land?
So I think that's a really good question, and it's something that we can discuss offline, or I'm more than happy to be invited as a guest to the next Wooragee Landcare meeting. And that could be potentially a safer together project of working in with the private and Crown, being the roadside, and working in with forest fire management. So that could be a really good way of working in together, and I'm happy to help give the right contacts, also help engage with that part. So part of my role in the bushfire management team for the state is working with the joint fuel management planning on the values part, but we also see the overall product delivery and how nominations happen. So that could be a come down to the local roadside and the private property, and then we can do a community nomination. And what will happen is there'll be a process that internally we'll work through, but this will be one that will be of importance for the local community, and we'll make sure that we endeavour to enable that to occur. So more than happy to take that offline and discuss that.
No worries, thank you. Anne?
Here I am, sorry. Michael, you were talking about the new electronic permit system. At the moment, when we do a burn on our private property, and it's not fire season, we just notify using the phone line. So is that different now? When is this new electronic permit coming in?
So my understanding is it's almost developed, and it's taking part of the Ring the Bushfire information line to notify of a private property type of burn occurring. So it would be hopefully a lot easier trying to make it app-based, digital, different platforms to be able to just log in, because we've found from an agency's perspective across tenure that a lot of people are more vigilant of fire or smoke all year round. So that's starting to trigger a lot more false alarms in the community, and unfortunately, once there's a report in the CFA world of a fire, brigades have got to respond. So the whole purpose of the electronic system is to alleviate that, but also there'll be, I believe, some more information and a little bit of a campaign, crossfire management, to promote that to the broader community. So once I know a little bit more about that, I'll share that information.
Thanks.
So have we got other questions? Sue, yes?
Michael may not be able to answer this. I'm on the other side. I'm in New South Wales, Michael. I just wondered if you had any knowledge of where New South Wales crews might be with cultural burning. I understand that the Rural Fire Service here in Albury has just started up these mitigation crews, and they are starting to learn about cultural burning. But other than that, yeah, I wondered if there's any likelihood, because it sounds like it might take a little while to get going. You started in 2014 with this process. So, yeah, just any thoughts on New South Wales's predicament?
Yeah, and I think, thanks for the question. And I think it's a vital opportunity, and with every major tragedy or event that's occurred, and what's been a catalyst is the 2019-20 season. And I suppose what's been the catalyst for a lot of change is state and federal inquiries, royal commissions alike, and what fire agencies are looking at now. As I mentioned before, we're still transitioning with the CFA side to build a better foundation to support CFA members across the state. So what that's taking into account too is the program that you've mentioned, and looking at how do we enable and what are other states and territories doing. And it's vital to get the best practice and the best way of doing it. It's not about duplicating or looking at the approaches that a particular state does. It's like what works in the localised community, what local resources or knowledge holders if we have, and who wants to participate with fire and environment. And it's collective minds, like all of us in this forum, and others that will potentially watch, but it takes a certain part of community to push and enable this. So that's what we're only working to do. It will take another 6 to 12 months due to the pandemic as well. It's not an excuse, it's just a reality. So we are hoping to emulate or look at better ways of doing the program you mentioned before, or others similar to.
No worries, thank you, Michael. So have we got any other questions for Michael? Anne, yes?
Me again. Michael, early on in your presentation, you were talking about the cultural burning workshops that the CFA members have been attending. And I'm really pleased that that's been going since 2014. That's impressive. I was just wondering sort of what's been the representation at those workshops, and how many CFA members would have gone through?
So with quite a few fire exchanges or workshops, there's been, with the Fire Sticks program, exchanges to far north Queensland, New South Wales, and recently in Victoria last year there was one held at Barmer National Park, and with the communities on the river there, in conjunction with Victor Stephenson and the fire agency. So it was looking at how do we burn on the river floodplain system. So we had 30 to 50 members attend that workshop. We've had exchange with Jikaja over the last couple of years. It was led by District 20 and other districts that are in CFA that have gone up with 30 odd members that have participated for a week or 2 weeks in programs there. So it's mainly based at our local volunteer members and a small amount of vegetation management officers that are the staff that support the volunteers in the bushfire space. So that's the target audience, or members that would really like to learn a little bit more. So that program's been pretty successful, similar to the way of delivering information, working together, but also getting a better understanding. So that's the main outcomes and achievements that happen in that space. There would have been some more programs and seminars that would have popped up this year, but they've been delayed. So,
yeah, it's a shame everything's been delayed. But we had one of our members went down to the Barmer one and was totally inspired. So it's great, yeah.
for sure, and I think that a good way of having a good workshop or working in with community is making sure there's some good governance in place. So from a Landcare perspective, it may be this is what we'd like to discuss, and having a clear understanding, like this presentation here. This is what we'd like to achieve together, and just about mutual respect, working together and looking at the positives of what we can achieve there. And we're found with a vast, or nearly, or probably the whole community in all different parts of the community have taken that journey with us, because it's making sure that the people participating have got feedback and ways of changing it for the local areas. So,
Nice. Thank you. Now, I've got a question from Gail in the chat. She's asked, how can private landowners become involved and learn about cultural burns?
yeah, so there are programs that are starting around different parts of the state and community, and that's something that we're looking at developing as, I suppose, a go-to guide across different parts of the state for anyone that would like to work with Indigenous communities that are working in that fire management cultural space. So a good way or linkage to look at it is that culturalburning.org.au site. That's got some really good programs and people that work in that space. But it's also vital for yourself and others to go, are we working with the right people, or we don't feel that's the right approach? And I think it's about going back to that previous question of making sure that the expectation, or what you're trying to achieve isn't about getting the solution now. This is the way of that's going to change, and in 3 to 6 months' time, it's going to look completely different, or it's going to improve that environment in the short term. It's about understanding the community's capacity and willingness to participate in that area. And you do find that some communities don't want to participate or be willing in that space, but it doesn't stop Landcare that have learnt knowledge from Indigenous people in the past, or continue to learn into the future. It's about what techniques or what ways have we learned, and we'll trial to see if that's a good way to burn. And it's about that observation and validating and going, well, this particular way of burning is really promotive particular tubes or bulbs. It might reduce a little bit of biomass, but it may create other factors that may counteract what type of fire you're putting in the landscape too. So fire's a bit like a canvas or doing a bit of art, the different strokes or techniques you use is the different outcome or result you're going to have. And it's the exact same in the environment or the landscape you're working in. So if you don't have quite an understanding for what you're targeting or the purposes of, that's when some real problems can occur. But with Wooragee and other Landcares and that, they've got that vast knowledge in there. It's about what do we use, what do we utilise, who do we incorporate, do we feel safe to incorporate or work in with the communities, or is there some linkages or people to go to? So I'm more than happy to put some suggestions of people to engage with, but also I'd like to be able to come to a couple of virtual meetings and get your feedback on how to improve not just the Wooragee area, but other Landcare and private landowners that like to participate in this area.
No worries, thank you. And I'll probably just comment on that as well for Gail, is that the Wooragee Landcare Group has been supporting the Cultural Burn project, which has been happening on private property. And there will be more workshops around that coming up hopefully next year. That will be the plan. So there's a good opportunity there to keep touch with Wooragee Landcare through their Facebook page or join their newsletter to find out what other events are happening. And you can potentially tap into and learn how, I guess, they've progressed, and then engage with your own local Landcare groups and stuff to try and drive that a little bit as well. So do we have any other questions for Michael?
Perhaps it's more of a comment than a question. John, Michael, I think people are coming around to support cultural burning in far greater numbers, particularly after last year's fires. So I think you're gaining a lot of support, and I think that's only bodes well for the community. And I think there's a acknowledgement and greater respect for Indigenous people.
Yeah, thank you for that comment. And I think a compliment to the community too is we're all custodians, and I think we've got to, as part of that working and walking together, we're so lucky on this continent to have such a unique natural environment that we can choose to do what we'd like with, and I think looking at different fire methodologies such as cultural fire or local techniques or ways of not putting in the fire but promoting the wetland or other areas, and understanding your own area is the best way of acknowledging country and also walking alongside Indigenous communities. But we're all in this together. We're all custodians, so I think that's the best way that we're working together with other partners, stakeholders and communities to get that good messaging out. But thank you for the comment.
Thanks, Michael. All right, well, if we haven't got any other questions, we might wrap up there. So I certainly, it has been a really interesting presentation today, and certainly reinforced what I've learned over the years on about fire management, and that it is about knowing what you want to achieve out of the outcomes of that burn as to how you potentially apply it. And there are so many different contexts, and that cultural knowledge is really interesting. So as part of this, I'd also just like to acknowledge our funding bodies, the Wetnall Trust and Department of Land, Water and Planning, who have both supported the Wooragee Cultural Burn project. And thank you all for attending today. And we will undoubtedly hopefully see you at some of the workshops in the future, and some of the Landcare groups in the area as well. If they'd like to tap into the Wooragee Landcare group, there's opportunities as well through the local facilitators, Penny Rowley or myself, and even working with the Greater Valley Landcare group project coordinator, Sally Day, to try and generate some cross-group interaction and stuff in the future around this type of work as well. So thank you.
Thanks, Michael. It's been great.
Michael.
Thank you all. And I'll share that presentation through now.